Welcome to explainED. This is our podcast where we're exploring AI, and Sean's going to ask some silly questions, and Renee's going to make us think. So,
Oh, it sounds like fun.
welcome to it. So we have Giancarlo Brotto with us today, and can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself? And then there's a second part to the question where we want you to define what AI means to you.
All right. So let's start with a bit of who I am. So I'm started off in a classroom. So taught statistics at the University of Toronto, and then got really passionate. And maybe it's a podcast for another day. But how do we look at education through a different lens? And I thought technology might be a way. So taught at one of Ontario's first digital schools. That's over 25 years ago, for context. And that set me off on another passion, which was two classrooms or two schools have the same access to tech, but how come one is thriving and flourishing and advancing and going forward and the other one isn't? So this little concept of, implementation science I caught wind of that. And it's like, well, how do we create, impact at scale? And so anyways, I started working with all the school boards in Ontario, helping them transition to digital. Company picked me up, started doing that internationally, worked on large scale national implementations all over the world. And that was for about 18 years. And you got to work with some great organizations, some great countries, some great school systems, some incredibly innovative schools. And always in the back of my mind is like, how do we scale that? How do we create greater impact? And so a couple of years ago, recognizing, and we knew that this AI world was coming to us. I was tracking it for probably the last 8 years, and specifically looking at how countries were preparing for a shift in skills in their systems. And then once ChatGPT came out, I started getting asked a lot more, like, what do we do? How do we prepare? And so created a consultancy, and that's what I do today. So my organization helps governments, school systems, schools, and other types of organizations as well, just think through how we navigate this era of AI so that we come out with greater impact and greater consequences. And, to your question around, I think the question was, what does AI mean for me? I think in its core form, it's an opportunity. We have some talented minds who spent their lives passionate about pushing things forward and exploring new ways and pushing what humanity can do. And now it's our job, all of us, to take that opportunity and make something of it. How are we going to add value to the world? So for me, AI is just another mechanism that the world has gifted us. And incredible human beings put thought together so that we can do something of value and leave this world a better place when we leave it. So that's what AI is for me. And it is a rapid accelerator. It is unlike any of the prior tools that people invented in the past. Wheels, fire, internet, cell phones, computers. This by far, because it's so accessible. So for me, it's an incredible opportunity where now all it needs is all of us, right? With the right passion and the right mindset to take a tool that's so as simple to use as talking to it, to create some more value to the world, so we leave it a better place. That's kind of what it embodies for me.
So I think one of the terms that you used is really exciting to me, and it connects to a question that we had for you. Is this implementation science, because it is a science about implementing. And we can all really connect with that example that you gave about two different schools with the same resources moving at two different speeds. How do you connect? In one of your pieces, you talked about AI integration as a moral imperative. So how do you balance that with the traditionally epically slow change implementation process in schools, and then toss in how fast AI is moving there? How are you tackling that?
Yeah, and I'm very, very straightforward with my sentiment about this, and I'll explain why, which is we cannot wait. Like so those in the education sector, and I wrote a piece for government officials and then writing one for the Mexican government. We have to act. Like there's no doing what we did in the past, which is let's wait and see. We cannot do it with this type of technology for exactly what you said. I use this analogy all the time. If anybody's been to a talk or a keynote I've done, imagine the innovations that most of us have experienced, right? So cell phones, internet, computers. Think about how much they've evolved, right? How much better they've gotten in such a short period of time. Think about how quickly they've diffused throughout not just our societies, all societies. Now, you got to see those as hot air balloons compared to the rocket ship that is artificial intelligence. So just imagine all these hot air balloons slowly going up. AI is a rocket ship just blasting, and it's a rocket ship in terms of how quickly it iterates and evolves and gets better every 3 months, 4 months. It's insane what's going on, and how quickly it diffuses. Right? OpenAI just launched their visual models in like 1 hour. They got 1 million users. Like, it's unheard of how quickly it diffuses, and to who? To everybody. And so, when you combine that rapid pace, you don't have time to use the same mechanisms if you're a country or if you're a school system, the same mechanisms we had with, well, let's learn, let's see what others are doing. We don't have that luxury anymore because everybody's starting to use it. Your students are using it, your staff is using it, your parents are using it. And what we need to do, and I talk a lot about having a moral compass to guide us. We have to have something that we're grounded in our values and beliefs that allow us in a moment to make a decision on how do we, if you're a leader, how do we guide? What direction do we get? We don't have to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes. But there's a cost to silence. By not giving guidance, by not acting, we're actually taking our most marginalized communities and making it worse for them. Because historically, we've seen what happens in the absence of guidance and where the kinds of things that they lead to. Perfect example is social media and digital. I know in the US, I'll use your country as an example, big rush, big lobbying for, we need more equitable access, give kids, all these communities that don't have access to internet or cell phones. Okay, let's shower them with internet and access. And I was sitting there going, okay, is what you want just access? I think what you want is impact. Because look at any data on what happens when you give access to lower income communities or, those in lower on socioeconomic status or those that are disadvantaged. It doesn't always equal value for them. And in fact, that's what we've seen, right? When you look at any and all studies and you compare, let's just take one example, digital frequency of use and its positive or negative impacts on teens, right? You look at the communities that are most being disserviced by high frequency use. It's on marginalized communities. So access, think we're doing being equitable by giving everybody access, isn't going to cut it anymore. And so in this era of AI, by failing to act, by allowing people to just do what they want with it, we're actually disservicing and mostly disservicing our population. So it's always been disservice. And so we have to act. We should start with those that are marginalized, and we need and we move rapidly and we learn and we iterate, right? That's the kind of the spirit around balancing, what we're used to doing with this new rapid evolution of AI, which no one's ever experienced before, and having to do something different, but not waiting. We can't afford waiting and just seeing what's going to happen. It's irresponsible to do so.
In your consultant work, you're working all over the world with this. Do you have any countries or just regions or school districts that you think are leading by example with this work?
Yeah, it's a great question because we don't have enough examples of impact, right? So there's 3 phases, just to for those that kind of are wondering, where are we at kind of on a spectrum. I've been kind of analyzing like how a country or a system or a school goes through 3 different phases. And I'll explain the phases for you right now, and I'll tell you where we don't have enough evidence to see, well, this is a clear path. Everybody follow this path. So everybody has to start at the Ignite AI phase, which is, it usually takes only 60 or 75 minutes. For some people, it's a month. But in 75 minutes, you can get someone from a state of, oh, I've heard of AI, I kind of think I probably should do something, to, holy crap, I need to do something now. Like, everybody needs to be ignited, right? So that's the first phase where you feel like, I need to do something about this. I need to learn more. Second phase is, I call it the implement phase, which is you start adopting it into existing practice. The easiest thing to do, which is, here's what I used to do, and this is now what I'm going to do now, and here's the value I'm getting out of it. So it's a natural next state, but everybody needs to start playing with it so they can start seeing what value it's generating for them. It's doing things better, right? This is what I used to do. I'm doing things better. But we cannot stop there. We have to move to the third phase. And there's some systems, when you mentioned, are there some that are moving on? There are absolutely some out there at this third phase, but they're just exploring it right now. We don't know what the outcomes are yet. But this third phase is the evolve phase. This is where you infuse AI into your processes, and you're not just doing things better, you're doing better things, and your impact. And we don't have enough people there yet, but there's some wonderful examples of countries, school systems, even schools that are exploring in that area right now. And happy to share, some tangible ones. If you look at Israel is a good example of what they're doing nationally there. They have a clear focus and a clear mandate. We need to educate. We need AI literacy for everyone, and we need to develop skills in students to how to navigate with AI. UAE's done the same. Estonia's a beautiful example. They're a perfect example with partnerships. They're a unique one. They said, you know what? We want to work with OpenAI and the makers of Claude and say, we want to make sure that our students, our 15 and 16-year-olds, is where we're going to start, 30,000 of them, that all of them have the skills of working with AI and know how to use it in their daily lives and in their work lives, which is their school lives, tied to their curriculum. And so they have an initiative, it's running September, and they plan on expanding it. So they've created it's a great example of a country and business partnerships to actually get to an outcome, which is how do we develop AI competency literacy? Well, we need access to the tools. But I should caution, because that's the easy thing to do. And everybody thinks, just give the kids access and they'll figure it out. Let's not do the same mistake we did in social media books. If you're going to do that, that's one piece. Dive deeper. Like if you dive deeper into Estonia's, it's, well, what's the intent? What are the skills that we hope kids develop? And how do we measure if kids are developing these skills? And of course, which is on everybody's mind around the world, how do we do that without eroding skills? And what skills are important for us to not erode? And how do we know we're not eroding them? So, Singapore is another good example. They tie it deep. They have someone said a line the other day, from no hair to gray hair, or maybe it should be from no hair to no hair. But it's a literacy program for everyone. And it's not just K through 12. Everybody needs literacy development. So tying the countries that tie their national AI strategy with their education strategy with their national AI strategy, because then it's a more wholesome perspective and you're developing communities, and school is just one part of it. So those are some good examples. If you want specific classroom or school examples, Eton College in the UK, if you're a prime minister that's thinking of being a prime minister, your parents think you want to be a prime minister, you send them to Eton College. So it's produced 28 different prime ministers in the world, always high level thinking. They give complete access to their students, ChatGPT, and the expectation is you must use it. We want you to figure out, how do you integrate this into your workflows? We want you to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And only when a teacher says you can't do it is when you're not going to use it. So they're doing the complete opposite of most other schools in the world are doing. Now, what's the results? What are the skills going to develop? Too soon to tell, but we're going to find out. So as I mentioned, there's what I always encourage is there is no golden path. There are no experts. I'm not even an expert. I just read about it and connect it to people. So I might know a little bit more than the average person, but it doesn't mean that I know what works. Nobody knows. We're all called to explore, to experiment, but to have a clear focus of our outcome, which is we have to get to a place where we're doing better things and not just the same things better. And if we have a clear focus on doing better things, then we're constantly evaluating ourselves, and are we doing better things? Is this better than we did before? Are there any challenges we brought up that we have to mitigate? Are there more value generators than challenges? Then we're moving down the right path. And then share, and then we get to learn. But I think we're always going to be in this mode, to be quite honest. Like if you think of past edtechs, and you guys have been in the space for a while, we have our lighthouse schools, whatever you want to call them, or we have our ISTEs and our conferences. We share cool things people are doing. I don't, and we have some models and ideas of what works. I think things change so quickly. We're never going to have, just think of ChatGPT, just that platform, right? Every 4 months there's a new feature, a new tool. Agents are coming out this year, totally changed the game of how we use it. So any model that we create or anybody created last year, it's irrelevant now. I get asked to do, Giancarlo, can you do prompt engineering workshops? I'm like, that's going to be dead. If you're creating your phase 1, 2, 3 of prompt engineering, it's wasted, because in a year from now, the model is going to tell you have a crappy prompt, and it's going to say, what do you actually mean? It's going to probe us, right? And so it changes so quickly. We need a completely different mindset about how we think about waiting for someone to guide us. I think the only guide, and this is the work that I do now, it's we need a different way of thinking. And we have to, and the different way of thinking is we have a different way of acting. And we need to enable new behaviors in this era where things change so rapidly, right? And the first thing, and you guys asked the great question, which is, the cost of silence and waiting. We can't. That is one belief we have to squash. Everyone in education needs to squash right now. We cannot wait. We need to act. We have to start playing with it. The best policy is the one you create today, and it's going to change in 4 months, right? The best guidance you give, it's the one you give today. It's going to have to change in 4 months. We can revise it. We'll learn, revise it. There'll be new stuff anyways, right? There's only one state. I've read all the policy guidance documents of the US and as well internationally. Only one state did the brilliant action, which is very powerful if you pay attention to it. On page 2, just has an empty table with date, version number, description. Right? it's a sign. Hey, this is going to iterate. They're already on, I think, version 3, and they just published it last summer, right? And so that's a good indication for how we have to think differently about, waiting and acting.
So, you mentioned, I think, I notice a lot of times when teachers want to use something like AI, they are afraid of doing harm to students, because they feel they don't know enough, or they might do something that somehow like is harmful. Like I think probably the one most people think of is they use AI somehow with a student and it hallucinates, it makes something up. But it sounds like what you're saying is it's more of a disservice to not even have that opportunity in the first place. Would you say that's true? And how do you help organizations or individuals kind of overcome that mentality?
Yeah, it's a great point, because that's a comment that I hear frequently. And well, first of all, it's I think if it was 2 years ago, that concern is just right. And even if you're in a classroom teacher and you pull things up, and then maybe you don't know if it's correct answer, but it sure sounds correct, right? The fact that if you're a teacher, you're feeling that way is actually a good thing, because you have something inside of you questioning it. And I think it'd be brilliant if you shared that uncertainty and concern while you're using it in class, so kids can model that and realize not everything that comes out of this is true. And here's what I'm doing to kind of fact check. Hey, Sarah, Timothy, I want you to go. I want you to check this point. Jonathan, can you go fact check that point? I don't know if what it's saying is like, it's a beautiful teachable moment, right? The fact that you're feeling that way. Now, if you feel that way so strongly that it prevents you from using it, that's a limiting belief that you have to squash. And there's no other way to say it. Because if all you do is focus on that belief, then I guarantee you, you won't have great experiences with AI, because that's all you're focusing on. You have to focus on, how do I learn with my students to teach those skills? Now, that's what I just said is a difficult concept. I know this, my mom has been an educator for over 32 years. And for her, getting in front of a classroom, this just comes from herself as an educator. She needs to feel like she knows more than her students. And to get in front of a classroom and release that vulnerability, I know we say teachers need to do that, but for some, and I know this because of my mom, and she tells me, and I feel it in her passion, she's a passionate educator, it's not something she can do very easily. So as educators or leaders or consultants, we can't expect teachers to relinquish that and to feel comfortable not being in control in classrooms. So what I advise for those teachers, if you're supporting a teacher that's like that, is just pre-plan, right? Just like you pre-plan a lesson, you pre-plan your questions that you're going to ask. Say, okay, in this particular one, I'm actually going to go to ChatGPT for this question. I usually ask this question to the students. I'm going to ask it to the students. Then I'm going to ask it to ChatGPT. And in class, we're going to do a little exploratory investigation. And then I'm going to get my students to fact check it. And then start with something small so that you feel comfortable. And then the more you do this, you start opening yourself up to its opportunity. Now, I said that's 2 years ago. Today, I could say hallucination rates, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but they're down to like 2-3%. So the frequency of hallucinations are a lot less. In fact, I would venture to guess there will come a point between sometime in now and next year, we'll probably see more errors from teachers' notes, conversations, and what they put on blackboards or slides. There'll be more errors in that work than there will be in if we had ChatGPT or any of the other platforms generating it. So it'll eventually, and everybody's got to get used to this concept. Eventually, the tools will make less mistakes than humans. Like in the UK right now, they're testing. They have the standardized testing that they do. They're piloting a program to verify the human assessed work of their standardized tests. Because in policy, they can't have the machine doing it, but they're having the humans do it, and then the machine is double checking, and they're finding all kinds of errors in human checking. So there's some conceptual things we're gonna have to start getting accustomed to. But the best way to do it for an educator that might, if you're reluctant and you're kind of hesitant because it makes stuff up, you start slowly. Just pick one question, try it in your classroom, see what it comes up with. It's a beautiful conversation piece. Or if you want to be even more controlling, try the question at home. Try to find a question that you can ask it where it spits out a wrong answer, and then copy and paste that and use that on your slides with your students. Say, hey, look, I asked ChatGPT and this is what it came up with. What do you think, guys? And I was like, oh, I think it sounds right. It's so convincing. I know, me too. And then I fact check. Even if you want to control the heck out of it, At least do that, because what you're doing then is you're playing with it at home. And that's what we need. All educators, if you're listening to this, you need to just start playing and exploring it. And that's how you start building confidence and competence. And more importantly, you start getting ideas. And this is the opportunity, right? Ideas of doing what you're doing, an amazing craft, doing it even better, right? And advancing and improving and getting goals that you would have never imagined. We're seeing it with some educators, but you got to start slow, but start.
You're bringing up something that we've been kicking around for the last couple of weeks, and we're calling it roughly cognitive lift guilt. So educators have an identity that they've built over a long span of years of hard work, a lot of time, a lot of effort. And as we start to show them these tools and show them some efficiencies in ways that I like how you're framing it, like not just doing better faster, but doing better things, like there's something that they give up. They feel like they've cheated when something that used to take them an hour to do and a lot of effort takes them less and comes out better. There's this almost guilt and shame that we're kind of working through about how, I feel like I'm cheating. I'm losing some of my identity in that. Have you seen that with educators, and how would you address that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question, because that we, as system leaders or governments, you have to identify that that's exactly what's happening right now. And it is cheating, and you should feel bad if now that you have this free time, you go on your social medias or you drink another latte and you're just, wasting your time, not finding more ways to add value in your classroom. So yes, you are cheating if you're doing that. But here's how I want people to think about this. Imagine you're such an incredible educator, and you're doing all these amazing things that we want to elevate. You want to put more kids in front of you. And so we do that. We get more kids in front of you. And then not just more kids, more schools. And we fill stadiums of people. And then we fill like auditoriums and live streaming to hundreds of thousands of kids. And you're just getting so busy and so popular. It's insane. You're like a CEO of this multinational lesson delivery platform. And so what do you do if you're a CEO of such a large multinational? You got people to support you, right? Try to find, and I've interacted with all kinds of the richest man in Taiwan and, the third largest company in the world, like these senior leaders of these big companies and even small companies. They all have EAs. They all have people who do their emails for them. They all have people who run their meetings. They all have people. Why? So they can do more, so they can have greater impact. Now, I don't know about you, but we don't have studies saying, oh, look at CEOs decline as, they hire assistants to write their emails. They're cognitive levels of these CEOs are just going to the toilet. And now we have no good leaders in the world. What do you become? We don't know. It's about doing more with what your talent is. And so this is what I tell all teachers. It's like, you now have your own personal teaching assistant. Imagine if the government said, hey, we think you're doing amazing work. We want to enable you even more. So we want to give you whatever staff you need to help you with whatever you want, so you can do more of that amazing thing. Go. That's what you now have access to. Take advantage of it. Now you have a whole team of software engineers. We're getting to agents, agentic AI, where I can just talk to it. And it's like a whole team of software developers creating my own custom code. Amazing. You have a team of software engineers. You have someone who's going to do your emails for you. Someone's going to summarize the emails for you. Like, we have to start thinking differently, thinking like a CEO of our classrooms. And you know what? You now have tools that enable you to do even more with what you're doing. That's the lens that we have to be taking.
Yeah, totally going to steal that. So hopefully you don't use it at any more, talking events or anything. Like that's going to be my thing. So
Michael, when someone tells me that story, I'll be like, yes.
Yes, this guy in Vermont told me that.
All right.
I think, Giancarlo, it's true what Mike was saying and what you're saying about how teachers are feeling about that. What I am seeing, I work at the high school level. Kids are not feeling that way. And a lot of the amazing things I'm hearing about how AI is being used, not just like, oh, I used it to write my essay, are from the kids. They're really, kids have always been fearless about diving in and exploring. And, I've met with some students who are just doing some amazing things with it. And my, you have a lot of experience with just ed tech in general. my worry is that we're taking this tool, even though it's different and it's fast moving, more than anything else has ever been. How do we get it so it's not just another tool we're using at that, like the lower, like you talked about in the SAMR model, like just that the enhancement level, how do we, because I feel like education as it is, we tend to be like, oh, this is great, we're going to use it to do this that we are already doing, and it doesn't really make anything any much more innovative or anything. So how do we bring it up to a higher level of redefining what we're doing as teachers?
Yeah, great question. I think there's a YouTube video somewhere out there. I posted it. Like one of the first things that I put some thoughts towards is like, do we need to redefine SAMR in an era of AI? And I think we do, because just by the nature of the technology. So somewhere out there, there's a new model of how we redefine SAMR. But in short, you have to define it as an outcome. The simplest thing you can do. It sounds so simple, but it's as basic as define that as your outcome. And what I mean by that, it's define that you don't want to just do things like you used to do, just more efficiently and better. You want to actually do better things, which means you have to sit down with yourself, where I encourage you with your staff members, so another colleague in your grade level, or since high school with your couple other fellow math teachers or chemistry or English teachers, and say, what if? What if this challenge we've always had with, when we get to factoring and parabolas and quadratics, everybody's marked drafts. It's just what's always happened. What if we took a different approach now with AI? What if we can get kids to actually excel and do even better than they did before? What if we tackled that problem? Be very specific. What is an outcome that you want? And then ask yourself, how do we measure our results? And then more importantly, you got to ask yourself the question, why do I want this? Why do we want this? Because the why is the juice. It's the energy. It's going to motivate you when it doesn't work out. It's like, no, but we have to reach these kids. Like, this is there's last chance. If you're in a high school, this is the last chance to reach these kids. If we don't get to them, they're probably not even going to finish high school, go to college. They're going to be the other statistics. It matters too much. That's why we want it. Remind yourself of the why. So it's, what's the outcome that we want? How do we measure results? Why do we want it? Why does it matter to us? That's going to be the emotional juice that's going to get us past the challenges. And then focus on the strategies and the activities. But always go back to what's the desired outcome. And I think with that kind of focus, and, think of the converse. If it's like, oh, I can't wait for it to take me half the time to do my lessons. This is great. That's my outcome. Oh, I can't wait for something else to mark my kids' tests. It saves me more time on the weekend so I can, like that. It's not good enough, right? Although I will say there is some motivation juice around. You know what? And I hear this all the time with teachers. I am so grateful. So after I get schools through the implementing, where they engage in the infuse phase, the sentiments I have is like, now I get it. Like, time with my family is so valuable. That's their why. I want more time with my family, and I want to have greater impact in school. That's a big driving force. This is why I want to learn more about AI, because I already see how much it's saving me time and adding more value to me and to my kids. I want more of that, right? And it's beautiful to see that once you start getting into those habits and those behaviors. Right? I do want to comment. You did make a statement about students and how they're more natural at using it. And, for those of you that are listening, and some of you, it might not apply. I know some of the students that I taught back in high school, doesn't apply to them because they all grew up in an era where you couldn't break the tape that carried your video and audio, right? Like, we grew up, I'm in my 40s, where you could physically break the tech if you used it wrong, right? So that's where we had to have caution. And some of us experienced breaking it. And so that's where we have this natural hesitancy. I do feel like we made a mistake, though. And this is 15, 20 years ago, where we said, hey, just give it to the kids and they'll figure it out. That was the worst thing we could have done to them. And now I have kids saying, this one child in particular, I'm thinking of, he say, please tell parents and teachers to care what kids do. It's too tough for us to do it alone. We need your guidance. It's gone complete other way around. So we owe it to, like I mentioned before, there's a cost to being silent. Like, we owe it to our kids. We don't have to be experts. We don't have to be, even though you don't read about it or know, a lot about it as much as, you guys and I do, it doesn't matter. What you have is a very strong moral compass around what is good and what is right and what is just and what are the values and behaviors and beliefs that we have formed and we've developed, that our prefrontal cortex is developed to filter things. Our kids don't have that. They haven't developed those values and behaviors as much as we have, and they haven't developed their prefrontal cortex. That's why we need adults to guide. You don't have to be an expert in AI, but you're an expert in the human condition and the human spirit and doing good and right and just to yourself and to others. Kids need that. And so I think in this era of AIs, we're leading kids in terms of their use. I think they have to see us using it and modeling it. And we have to be very attuned to when we see behaviors and actions that might take kids down the wrong path. For example, and I want all teachers and those listening right now to pay close attention when kids start talking about them engaging with any kind of empathic AI. So if they say, oh, I talk to this bot regularly. Well, that's amazing. Tell me more about that. Being inquisitive. We're already starting to see cases where kids are blurring the line between fiction and reality. And our moral compass has to tell us we want kids engaging with humans before they engage with bots. In an era of AI, we know what social media did with their kids. Social media didn't make them more social, right? As much as they are liking and commenting. And now we have these fake bots and chat bots that are designed to pull them in. They're showing empathy. As educators, as leaders, and as parents, I have a parent, 2 high school kids and an elementary school kid. We have to be very attuned to when kids might be blurring that line and engaging with bots more than they are with humans. We have to dial up the value of engaging with humans a lot more. So from allowing kids to explore, absolutely, but I think it needs our guidance, right? And let's do it with them, and let's have conversations with them.
Giancarlo, this has been amazing. What you've done to seriously help me understand how you infuse the moral compass component of this. And I really just connected with that phrase about not doing things better, but doing better things. That's kind of the messaging that I've been lacking in the work that we've been doing here. This has been incredible. Thank you. I don't even have any sort of conspiracy theory question to end the episode. So, I mean, that's a compliment right there. It really is. Sean, Renee, do you have anything else?
Not conspiracy theory related. No.
No, definitely not. Yeah. And I just think, the CEO analogy was wonderful, and I think will resonate with a lot of people here.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Nice job, Mike.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
No, seriously, thank you, and we'll let you go so you can get out of that space where you are. But we appreciate you making that work so much. This has been incredible. Thank you.
I'm glad. You had some great questions, so it brought a lot out of me. It was good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.